All right, and we're back with the program. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here. And with the ongoing pandemic and everybody concerned about what's going on in the world and getting everything restarted, one of the sports leagues that's out there that's taking the jump on everything out there is NASCAR. There's European soccer starting up. There's other sports that are starting up. PGA, NFL's already talking about a schedule that they've released. MLB is talking about starting July 4th. NBA is taking this deep breath, sigh of relief, because now they can start talking about starting up. And all this is going on with UFC, WWE still starting to go ahead and continuing on with their schedule in a kind of different fashion that is being allowable under the rules and guidelines of the pandemic. So NASCAR is going to be starting up this weekend, sans crowds. So they'll still be hitting the racetrack, but it'll be only teams and drivers and only, I guess, needed personnel there as far as at the different tracks. And here to talk about what the rest of the season will look like for NASCAR is a good friend of mine. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today all over the place on social media when he's on social media, because he's actually kind of busy doing a lot of stuff in his life right now. It is Marcus de la Garza. And Marcus, just always great to have you back on the program.
Thank you, Gerald, and thank you to the Pop Culture Cosmos family for having me back again. I really love doing this. As you guys can tell, I love talking NASCAR. So to have an outlet like this to come on and share my perspective with you, I really love it, and thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. I love throwing something in there like this every now and then. It makes for good, it makes for good pop culture conversation. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is that NASCAR is returning this weekend, as we're going to be talking about this, and as you're hearing this. It's returning back the weekend of the 17th. And I want to ask you this, is it the right time for NASCAR? I mean, they want to go ahead and jump the gun and beat almost every major sport out there, as I just said and just indicated. Is it the right time for NASCAR to return, or do you think it's a little bit too soon?
That's a very big question to answer. And I'll tell you a couple things. I'm not an infectious disease doctor or epidemiologist, so whatever I say is just jargon at this point. But my personal opinion, I think it's a little bit too early. That being said, the fact that we've got racing this weekend, I'm pretty excited about, despite my reservations. And we actually might have a more interesting TV product because of this. NASCAR is going to be at Darlington this weekend. It's a 1.36 mile oval. We actually have two races here this week. We've got May 17th on Sunday, and then May 20th on Wednesday. We're doing a 7:30 p.m. race as well. These are going to be outstanding races, but I do think it's too early. Think about all the extra personnel you've got to bring into a track and expose those people as well, especially in times where I don't know if South Carolina's had a decrease in their overall count, their overall COVID counts. So it's definitely an interesting decision, but I'm sure they've weighed all the options, they've done all the risk assessments, and they're ready to go. But I would say it's too early. I'd give it another week, but you know what? They're going to do their best, and that's all we can ask. If we come out of this next week or 2 weeks from now, we've got 100 cases that sprung from this weekend. I mean, that'll at least be the indicator for all other major sports. Don't start.
Exactly. And like I was saying earlier, the NBA, which I do a lot of stuff on as far as podcasts with the Lakers Fast Break, I know they were excited to hear other sports leagues like NASCAR jumping the gun and going, head first into it as far as the schedule is concerned, because that took a lot of pressure off them. And I know that NASCAR, I agree with you. I think it maybe is a little bit too soon. We're still trying to gauge this, see if the second wave is going to be something as many have feared that could possibly happen, as far as are getting back to some semblance of normalcy, some semblance of our society, and that possible second wave that could hit. And, we're about ready to see if that's going to happen, because not all of these states have already started or in the process of starting up once again with a lot of things that we know and, we're used to in our daily lives. So NASCAR heads to us, like you said, with two races coming here in the next few days. It's very important now for NASCAR is going to get the spotlight. And this is a chance for NASCAR under these conditions to go ahead and reshape the way they produced television, I think.
Absolutely. And here's actually one of the big takeaways that I had from, the improved TV product that we might have this weekend. And that is that the drones that were in use at Daytona this year by the Rotor Riot crew, it's an entire drone crew. I follow these guys on YouTube and everything. I'm sure you guys know I'm a drone nerd. I build drones. I love drones, everything drones. But the Rotor Riot crew was actually out at Daytona and filmed a lot of Daytona via the drones and the stuff we saw via the drones on TV. So one of the big things that NASCAR's already said is with no fans in the stands, those drones can actually operate over the stands now and give us an entirely different perspective that we've never had. So imagine a drone running alongside a car down the front straightaway at Darlington. It's going to be nuts.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited about that, and just the fact that, maybe we actually will have some different TV perspectives, different camera perspectives that we wouldn't normally have, because you can set up a camera right in the middle of the grandstands and capture a different perspective. So I'm really hoping that Fox does not the right thing. Fox really pushes the creative bounds here, because there's a really big chance for a wonderful TV product. That being said, Fox is taking the next 12 races, or just 12 races in general, with the shakeup in the schedule. Normally NBC shoots half the season and Fox shoots half the season, but this is it's kind of all up in the air. For sure, though, Fox is covering the All-Star race coming here in a couple weeks. I think it's May 24th is the All-Star race, and we'll kind of see from there. This is going to be an interesting product this weekend. Especially on Wednesday night as well. That's going to be a really interesting product to see on track. I couldn't tell you the last time we had midweek racing for NASCAR. It's been a while.
It has been a while, and the only reasons I could imagine is because of a delay, either due to a crash or rain or some type of climatic weather, some type of bad climate that necessitated that. So this is going to be the first time in a while we've seen any type of midweek NASCAR racing. So that's going to be interesting. But you mentioned, as far as, all these entities getting together and an all-star race and whatnot, recently, during this time of pandemic, the NASCARs and the IndyCars of the world, those leagues got together in a form and a fashion of iRacing, which is something that I've been familiar with for years now, which has been somewhat popular. It is basically a racing simulation, a high-end racing simulation, because it's actually pretty costly to get into it and maintain and whatnot. But it's something that the groups on NASCAR and IndyCar really started to embrace once the pandemic hit, and the drivers were forced, off the roads and inside their homes. And it's something that I think worked very well for IndyCar. I think kind of worked well for NASCAR for the most part, with one major controversial exception.
Yeah,
and we'll go on that and go into that in a second. But the thing I liked the best was that something I wanted to return for a long time was IROC, the International Race of Champions, which is something that goes back my day to my early childhood, and as far as something that I was watching on TV way back when we get all the stars from the different racing formats involved. And iRacing was still managed to go ahead and do that with equal cars on the same footing and recreate that. And I thought that was fun. I thought the Indy Racing League, it brought them into a higher light, because iRacing, even with the declining ratings of NASCAR, IndyCar racing was still thought of as a second-tier league at this point in time, even with the declining ratings of NASCAR. NASCAR, like I said, did okay as far as the presentation is concerned. They tried very hard. Fox analysts and the commentators were there. Jeff Gordon, and the whole night and the whole 9 yards were there commentating on the race. Jeff Burton and all that. Yep. I want to hear your thoughts on the iRacing experiment per se, as far as all these different drivers, some of them who already had experience and who use iRacing as a simulator, as a way for them to go ahead during the off season and continue to practice and stay sharp. But I want to hear your thoughts on the iRacing experiment, especially for NASCAR, and the controversial things that, happened because of Kyle Larson.
Just right out the gate, Gerald, I just want to go ahead and say that I thought that the e-racing that we did, the e-NASCAR series that we did, was outstanding. Just the iRacing product in general was great. And you mentioned IndyCar; they had a pretty big surge in popularity, just
I
because
think
of the
of the two series, I'm going to say the better presentation I think was done by NASCAR, but the one that benefited more was IndyCar.
IndyCar. Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I wouldn't say that their presentation was overall better. It was just they got the most out of the experience there. Some of that is they had better exposure for their drivers for the first time in a while. You could see a little more of that personality coming through, and people could identify with those drivers easier. Whereas NASCAR, you're kind of used to seeing or hearing a lot of these drivers talk. They give press conferences nonstop. You hear them on commercials while you listen to the race or watch the race. They're everywhere. So it's not like NASCAR was trying to bridge that gap at all. But you brought up iRock, and that's something that was very important to me while I watched this entire series. Is we actually, for the first time in who knows how long, actually had a racing product that was 100% about driver skill. Because, and I say that because every week the drivers were given the exact same setup. The only thing that was different was the badging on the car on the outside of the simulated car, right? But at the end of the day, the engineering that went into it was exactly the same, and the only thing that was allowed to be changed were tire pressures and you could change your wedge adjustments, stuff like that, stuff that you could do on the track in the race. You were allowed to do, but that was it. And so Denny Hamlin said it best. I read an article about his time doing this iRacing series. I think I read it yesterday. Maybe it was this morning. But he was just saying that, it felt good to book in. He actually won the first one and he won the last one. And he was saying that for the first time in a while, he had a very good grade of where he sat skill-wise with regard to everybody else on track. Because for the first time in forever, you actually had identical setups. So you could actually gauge driver skill and not just driver skill plus car setup or driver skill minus car setup, whatever it may be. It was interesting to kind of hear that perspective, because you never think about these drivers also wanting to measure themselves against everybody else, because that happens every week on the track to a certain extent. Your Joe Gibbs Racing cars are going to have the best technology in them, whereas Gaunt Brothers with Daniel Suarez has the worst Toyota tech in the business right now. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go from here. But you did bring up Kyle Larson. What were your thoughts on that? That was pretty insane how that all broke out over 48 hours. And I guess we should tell the listeners too. He made a racial slur on one of the broadcast of one of the NASCAR race. And he thought he was off mic. It doesn't really matter if he thought he was on or off mic, but he made a very blatant, racial slur, and it was uncalled for. And I mean, it's always uncalled for, but it was bad, and it was bad look for him. So
it was bad, and he was dropped like a bad habit. And that's, like you said, in 48 hours. Not only was dropped by the sponsors, and of course, if you're dropped by the sponsors, guess what? You're going to be dropped by your team. So Chip Ganassi said, hit the road, Jack. And you know what? It was well-deserved, because you don't say those type of things, either, like you said, on or off mic, on or off camera. Wasn't called for. And I understand you really get into the iRacing. And it's a credit to iRacing as far as the ability to, as close as possible, realistically translate that type of experience. And so many different times I've seen these competitive pro racers. I'm not talking about the guys, the YouTubers and things of that nature I've watched for years now on iRacing. They always get upset. Once you get to a certain level, they're very competitive. But to see the Joseph Newgardens, to see the, like you said, Kyle Larson's, unfortunately, in his case, and to see the Dale Earnhardts and Dale Earnhardt Juniors and so many different other types of individuals that were in the iRock, the NASCAR, the IndyCar series in iRacing, take it so seriously, and to have those same type of emotions, it just shows you that the iRacing experiment for me overall was a big success.
Absolutely, I 100% agree with that.
So we're going back on the track for real. I wish they would kind of stay actually in home in iRacing a little bit longer, but again, they're going to be out on the track very soon. So I want to hear your thoughts at the time of the ending of the season, as it ended because of the pandemic. Kevin Harvick had a slight lead over Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, and Alex Bowman, with Jimmy Johnson at a surprising 5th right now in the series as well. So I want to hear your thoughts on the rest of the season, because the track layouts are going to be different this time around. So they're going to go ahead and be a little bit favorable to another driver as opposed to another driver the way it was before. So I want to hear your thoughts on the rest of the season and how it may play out, in your opinion, on which drivers may come out ahead in this different type of truncated season.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very interesting question. I think with the fact that we haven't had any practice over the last 9 weeks, I think we've been on a total of a 9-week hiatus. Yeah, that's it. We haven't had any practice other than the iRacing stuff. And then we're going to hit Darlington this weekend totally green. Nobody gets practice. I think we're literally just rolling the line, green track, no practice, nothing. Just go for it. With that being said, this is going to be a very interesting product moving forward. You know, with the double race happening this week at Darlington, that's an entire shift to our schedule that we normally don't have, just period. And it's going to definitely, like you said, it's going to favor certain drivers. What that is right now, I couldn't tell you, because I'm not sure the schedule that we have is actually going to stay. We've got a lot of things that are very fluid right now with the scheduling for NASCAR. A lot of it kind of revolves around what tracks are open, you know, what states are going to be open at that point in time, if we have a resurgence in cases, that kind of thing. But all things, you know, being considered here, and let's just go ahead and assume that everything goes the right way and we have a season for the rest of the year here. I wouldn't foresee a big shakeup in the top 12 that we currently have, right? You know, you've got your,
well, number 7, then the seventh place individual, Kyle Larson. Actually, you'll see it.
Yeah, we'll see the shift in that one, but you know, that's for the most part, the guys that are up there are going to stay there. You know, in 12th right now is Kyle Busch. He's not going to stay in 12th. You and I both know that, Gerald. That's crazy. I can't believe he's in 12th place overall right now, period. But you know, you will see Kevin Harvick will probably come back strong. Kyle Busch is actually the favorite to win this weekend. He's 6-1 odds. Believe it or not, Matt Kenseth stepping into that 42 car for Kyle Larson after his big debacle. Matt Kenseth is a 33-1 odds for winning there. He's got better odds than a few of the other drivers that have been driving full time for the last 2 years. So this is going to be a very interesting mix up. The fact that guys haven't been racing, haven't been driving, haven't been doing much over the last 9 weeks is definitely going to put a interesting spin on things. 1 or 2 names to watch out for to make that move up from lower down, from further down in the standings, though. Watch out for William Byron. He had a few wins on the e-racing series, or the iRacing series. He might actually have found his confidence racing a simulator against the guys that he races in Cup. So we'll see if that confidence translates onto the track. I think it's possible that it will. And if it does, we actually might see this golden boy show up for the first time in a while. Or ever, technically. But, you know, the other one I'm kind of worried about, though, is, and he's got a good position right now. He's in 6th, Ryan Blaney. I'm worried about him. He didn't feel like he started out great this year. He's got 1 top 5 and 3 top 10s, but he's only led 2 laps. And by this point last year, I think he had led several more than that. So, that's kind of my stance on it. We really, really, really have to wait and see what the final schedule is here. Whatever it comes out to be, whenever NASCAR announces it, is going to be the big determining factor there. And the only reason I'm being cautious is I was reading a few things from Mike Joy and God, who else? A couple of the other announcers on Twitter that were just saying, hey, this NASCAR season is really... It's going to be a wild ride for not for the first time in forever, because we get silly season every year, but you know, it's going to be a wild ride.
And they're not going to be there at the location. They're going to be in studio, correct?
Yeah. The announcing team will be on in studio in Charlotte, from what I've read, but it's just going to be a wild ride in general. I don't understand how we're going to get to some of these tracks in some of these states that may not be open by then. So
big questions abound. And I agree with you on William Byron. He did find his groove on iRacing, and we'll see how far that goes for the number 24. My pick to actually drop a little bit would be Eric Almirola. Eric Almirola, because of the fact that he hasn't led many more laps than Ryan Blaney, and he's up in 8th position right now. I think that may be a little bit too high for him, unless I see a lot more proof.
He's good for like a 12th position finish by the end of the season. That's great. You know, good for you, Eric Almirola. You've got to keep growing as a driver, though. His skill's almost there, though. I think give him another year, and he's going to be running consistent top 10s, you know, maybe even top 5s.
There you go. And Kyle Busch, you and I, like you said, it's in 12th now. He's only 16 points out of first, so it's not like exactly he's far way down on the list, but I expect a lot better from him, and I expect you'll get it here coming up in this truncated season. It's something definitely to look forward to. It's going to be, like you said, a wild ride in NASCAR coming up very soon for all of us out there that follow the sport. One last thing is, Marcus, what are you up to? What do you want to talk about? Before we on out, just always want to hear some good stuff coming from you, my good friend, Mr. Marcus de la Garza.
Yeah, absolutely. And just want to say one more time, thank you for having me back on, Gerald. You know, like I said, I really do love just talking NASCAR. So, right now I'm job hunting. I just wrapped up a coding boot camp. Last time I was on the show, it was right before I started coding boot camp. So, just wrapped that up. Full stack web developer now. Put some quotes around that. And, I still need my practice. Still need to go find a job and everything. But I'm gonna keep working on my capstone project. I developed this mural finder for Tampa. And so I'm going to keep building that out and actually expand and add in St. Petersburg and everything. I'll send you a link so that the listeners can check it out. Other than that, it's going to be a lot of just job searching. So check out Red Gold Green. Red Gold Green's posting music throughout the coronavirus or the COVID quarantine. They just released a few different songs and just released a live album. So if everybody could do me a favor and go check out Red Gold Green, that's RDGLDGRN. They have a new live album available anywhere you stream music. So that's about it, man. It's pretty simple time right now. Apply to jobs, keep working on projects, listen to music.
There you go. Well, congratulations on your success. I wish you the best of luck in your job search and be able to find something. I know there's a lot of great things out there for you in the future. Every time I've worked with you, you've done awesome as always. And Red Gold Green, they're just, I've heard their music so many times before. I remember when you were touring with them. It was just so great to have you doing it, be a part of that tour. I know you were excited for it. So I've watched their videos on YouTube. It's just been a lot of fun. So I wish, again, all the best for you and continued success as you continue to report in on pop culture, NASCAR, whatever you want to talk about here on this show. It's just always so great to have you a part of the program. Once again, it's Marcus de la Garza. You got to catch what he's doing today on social media, either through us. If you got a question for us, go ahead, hit us up at Pop Culture Cosmo. I'll be glad to relate it along. Marcus, again, just so great to have you on the show. Again, continued success to you, and I wish you all the best from us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.